So are you saying that talking about trauma, it's going to make you worse as opposed to healing it? That's really interesting
That's
because,
a huge mindset shift, right?
yes.
Because the programming says you need to go talk about it. So talking about trauma actually deepens the neurology of that event that happened. If I didn't learn what I needed to learn from the traumatic event, my unconscious mind will keep it active. Your unconscious mind doesn't know the difference between real and imagined. And we help girls in Uganda and Kenya go to school to prevent teenage marriages. You know, I was engaged to be married when I was 18, right? And in my culture, that's what they do, right? You grow up, women are unfortunately bred to be married. As I was a police officer, they asked me to do some self-defense with these teenage girls. That it was an organization called Days for Girls. When you kind of finally go internal and ask for the answers, the universe will give you what you need.
Maybe expand on the timeline, Sharathi. I know you're a coach.
I could talk about this all day long. I love talking about this.
Maybe put it in a few steps for someone that is getting through it.
Sure. So if NLP and hypnotherapy had a baby, think of it as timeline therapy. I became a police officer because I felt powerless growing up. So unconsciously, I wanted power. I rode motorcycles, I snowboarded, I became a cop. I did all the boy stuff, right? Because I wanted to prove that I was strong enough. If I could give anybody any advice, is understand why you do things. Because here I was thinking it was because I was East Indian, because I was born in this family, it was because I'm a girl, it was because all these things was blocking me from being successful. It had nothing to do with that. It was my own limiting beliefs that stopped me. And now, as soon as I got rid of that, I started this work only 2 years ago. As soon as I got rid of that, I was finally successful in business. I took 3 businesses to 6 figures in the first year. If you just keep thinking about depressive thoughts, you're going to get depressed. You keep thinking about anxious thoughts, guess what? You're going to have anxiety. If you just stop talking about the depressive thing and maybe start talking about something happy, guess what? You'll be happy in that moment because it's a mind-body connection. All the mystics are saying that 2026, 2027 is the year to finally let go of all those limiting beliefs, heal that generational trauma. There's a new paradigm coming. The old paradigm is falling. That's why there's so much chaos in the world right now, right? It's like the old systems are starting to crumble because people are waking up. There is so much to our minds. There's so much to the level of power that we have no idea, and it's because it's been trained out of us.
Today's guest is a woman who didn't just break expectations, she rewrote the rules. Raised in a traditional East Indian household where silence was safety and obedience was currency, Billie Aadmi was taught early what was allowed. But even then, something in her refused to shrink. She went on to do the unthinkable, becoming a police officer, serving with strength and integrity for over 2 decades in a world few from her background were ever meant to enter. But her greatest transformation didn't come in uniform. It came the moment she chose herself. Walking away from the life she was expected to live, Billie stepped into the life she was meant to lead, reclaiming her voice, her worth, and her power. Today, she is the CEO and founder of Go Mindspire Inc., co-founder of Amplify Impact Academy, an international speaker, best-selling author, and a single mother of 2 who achieved financial freedom before 49 through real estate investing. But her true work goes deeper than success. Through NLP, hypnotherapy, and advanced mindset coaching, Billie helps people break the invisible chains of conditioning and step into who they were before the world told them who to be. Her message is simple and unstoppable. You are not broken. You are not too much. And your past does not get to decide your future. This is not just a guest. This is a force of becoming.
I know you do have a podcast page as well.
We do. We just
What's
launched
it
our own
called?
podcast called Clear the Screen,
What is that
which
about?
is all about teaching people how to manage their anxiety. Because all it is clearing the screen from the horror show is what they have up
Mhm.
to clearing it to put up the love story. Because all anxiety is doing is a messenger from your unconscious mind to remind you focus on what you want, not what you don't want.
Mhm.
That's all it is.
And you also have a book. You're the bestseller author of a book. I forgot the
Yes.
name. Maybe you just.
We actually have several coming up now. One was with Pursuit 365. So that
Mhm.
was a bunch of authors about business and female entrepreneurship. And then we have one actually about Clear the Screen. And it is a bunch of authors that are coming together, and it's about their journey from Victim Island to Solution City. So it's called Empowered. And it is most of our students that have come through our academy of how they traveled from Victim Island to Solution City. And there's their story of empowerment. And all the proceeds are going to our nonprofit, which is called Girls Matter, that my business partner, Melissa, launched several years ago, which I'm now on the board member on it. And we help girls in Uganda and Kenya go to school to prevent teenage marriages.
Oh,
Because what
wow.
happens, in some of those cultures that they can't afford it, it comes down to food or school. Obviously, they pick food, and then they have so many mouths to feed, so they marry the girls off to get some money. And the girls, one of the highest death rates down there is because of childbirth, teenage childbirth. So we're raising funds to help put the girls in school, keep them in school.
How did you get involved with that?
Well, my partner Melissa she saw a documentary called Girl Rising, and it was talking all about this, exactly what happens down there in like Afghanistan, down in Africa and India. And it was just showing these beautiful stories of how these girls that kind of went against the grain of what society told them to do and what, family. It was kind of similar to my story, what, I
Right,
was telling you about that, I was engaged to be married when I was 18.
right.
Right. And in my culture, that's what they do, right? You grow up, women are unfortunately bred to be married, right? Be wives and mothers. And there was always that voice inside me. So I really connected with that. And I had an opportunity to go to Nepal a few years ago. And as I was a police officer, they asked me to do some self defense with these teenage girls. That it was an organization called Days for Girls, helping them learn how to use menstrual supplies so they didn't miss school during their cycles. And I'm sitting there and I'm, teaching them, how to do some self-defense, like, kick them in the nuts and, that kind of stuff. And it just like hit me that these girls, they were young teens, 12 to 14 years old, and they're looking at me as if I'm this powerful, strong, independent woman. And then I just said to them, I was like, I was you. I was you when I was
Mhm,
your age. I
mhm.
was very quiet. I was very shy. I was very terrified of my parents and, abiding by the rules of the household. And, we carry a lot of honor. Girls carry a lot of honor, which, in our cultures they
Right,
do.
right.
And I could just see how I was just sparking little, inspiration in these girls that, like, okay, well, she can do it. Then it means I can do it. And that's really what it comes down to is when one girl can see another girl and resonate with her, then it can spark that voice in her to speak up, really, because that's what you have to do is speak up.
What was that turning point when, as a police officer, what was that turning point that you decided to actually move on and start inspiring others to change their mindset?
It was a slow progression because, the programming, it all comes down to programming, right? Like, what are your programs and what are the strategies that we have created growing up? Obviously, my programming was, get a job, get security, get married, have children. So I checked all those boxes, except I was still miserable. I'm like, why am I not happy? I have it all, right? Quote unquote. And it was because my soul wasn't getting what it needed. And, pandemic happened. I decided to leave my marriage. I was unhappy. And I literally just kind of looked up, right? And I said, like, I did everything you told me to do. Now, why am I still unhappy? And I felt like my soul was dead. And so when you kind of finally go internal and ask for the answers, the universe will give you what you need. And so I just started following the breadcrumbs and I found, NLP, I found hypnotherapy, I found timeline therapy, which is, I think, the world's most powerful modality to heal trauma because you don't have to talk about it. Because again, the programming is go to therapy for 30 years, right? As police officers, we're mandated to go to therapy. And
Oh, interesting. I didn't
yeah,
know that.
we are, except, you don't want to talk about the things you see. So you either go and you say, they ask you, how are you? I'm like, I'm good. I'm fine. Right? They don't talk about it, or we talk about it and we feel worse.
So, when someone is struggling to talk about something, how does that mindset change start? Like, is that does it have to be through external party or a therapy or someone to get them going, or is that something that happens inside? What are the steps? Like, how does that happen?
It's different for everybody. Like, I'm not knocking talk therapy. Talk therapy is amazing for awareness. Unfortunately, the programs that are running are at the unconscious level, so we can't change them consciously. Right? Like right now, we're talking consciously. I'm in my beta brainwave, like we're just talking. The programming that is running is just running unconsciously in the background. So talking about trauma actually deepens the neurology of that event that happened. So I want to explain something here about trauma, because this was a really big mindset shift for me. We feel that we have to talk about it in order to resolve it. What the trauma is there to serve is you needed to learn something from that, right? So if I didn't learn what I needed to learn from the traumatic event, my unconscious mind will keep it active, right? It won't release it. So what timeline therapy does is allows the learnings to upgrade and up level, basically upload into the unconscious mind. So the unconscious mind says, okay, Billie learned what she needed to learn there. Now I can release this. Think of PTSD, right? Post-traumatic stress disorder. It's a disorder these days. Think of the soldier that's out in war. Your number one job of the unconscious mind is to keep you safe. So when I'm out there, and I'll even use my example as a police officer, I can't be scared in my job or I could get hurt, right? Like we'll use an example like active shooter. We don't get any of those here, but pretend there was, a call with a gun. Normally, my brain would say, go run away from that. But as police officers, we have to go against our human nature and go into the face of danger. So my unconscious mind needs to suppress that fear or whatever I'm feeling in order for me to stay safe and do my job. What happens if I don't actually process, well, what did I need to learn in that situation? And the learning can be as simple as I'm safe. I'm loved, I'm okay, I'm smart, whatever it is. If I just suppress it and suppress it and suppress it, what the unconscious mind will do is, from time to time when it feels you're safe and ready to release it, it'll present that memory to you consciously, which is why PTSD has these, I had this vision of this traumatic event. And it is really in your face, right? Because the unconscious mind is like, hey, I need you to resolve this. I need you to understand that you are safe or whatever the learnings were. So once you do that, it releases it and people don't get those memories anymore.
So are you saying that talking about trauma, it's gonna make you worse as opposed to healing it? That's really interesting
That's
because
a huge mindset shift, right?
yes,
Because the programming says you need to go talk about it and it needs to
correct.
take some time. And I always question people and I'm like, who told you that?
Correct, because I've heard from a lot of people when they are talking about their trauma, it brings them back to that situation
Mhm.
as if it happened again.
Yes, because neurologically, your unconscious mind doesn't know the difference between real and imagined. And an example of that is when you're watching a movie and something happens, like a horror movie, and all of a sudden something's scary, and you're like, oh my gosh, like something neurologically happened to you, but nothing. You're just watching the screen. Or the opposite side of, something emotional and you start crying, like nothing happened to you. Why am I crying? It's because your unconscious mind takes it personally. So when you talk about the trauma, you're literally bringing it back into reality and you're neurologically going through it again. And sure, there are ways that there's so many different doorways into healing trauma. I just say, well, why do it the hard way and the painful way? Why not do it in a way that's gentle and fast and lasting, which is timeline therapy? And I truly believe timeline therapy is the wave of the future when it
Can you
comes
give
to
us
mental
maybe
health.
expand on the timeline therapy? I know you're a
I could talk
coach and
about
you
this all day
coach
long.
that.
I love
Uh,
talking about this.
maybe put it in a few steps for someone
Sure,
that is getting through it or
sure.
going through it.
So if you know what NLP is, neuro linguistic programming, and you know what hypnotherapy is, right? Hypnotherapy is very in the unconscious mind. NLP is more about the conscious mind, right? The programming. So if NLP and hypnotherapy had a baby, think of it as timeline therapy. It's a conscious, unconscious integration, meaning whatever I needed to learn at the unconscious, I can integrate it into my conscious mind so that now I can actually continue my life and bring my learnings into my reality here, right? And it's not just up there somewhere. So what timeline therapy does is it goes into our timeline, right? With time is like the fourth dimension, right? Here's the third dimension, fourth dimension, and the fifth dimension is what we call the quantum field. And there's a lot of buzzwords about quantum healing and 5D coaches, and that's kind of what we do. We go up into the quantum field because that's where the unconscious mind lives. So what we do is we go back in time, back to the root cause. This is the difference with what timeline therapy does and other therapies. Other therapies deal with what we call significant emotional events. Okay, let's talk about this significant emotional event that happened when you were 6. Let's talk about this one when you were 2. We go to the root cause. Now, the root cause could be in this lifetime, it could be in a past lifetime, or it could be passed down to you generationally, meaning the first time you ever felt anger. Not this time when you were 6 years old and you got really mad. The first time you ever felt anger.
Like before someone is born?
It could be before born, it could be in the womb. We go through a very specific
Yeah.
script to identify what that is. And again, we're working with the unconscious
Or
mind,
as a
right?
kid, like the first time you want something, your parents don't give it to
Exactly.
you.
When people say the first time I was angry was when I was, 16, we're like, I don't know you if you know babies.
Yeah.
When they don't get fed or they got a dirty diaper, they scream, right? That's anger.
Mhm.
And so we go back to that root cause. Now, every significant emotional events, if you think of like a pearl necklace, it's kind of like connected. So if we pull the first pearl, the rest of it just unravels. So we call that a gestalt. So there's actually gestalt therapy, which they deal with all the anger, they deal with all the sadness. So what timeline therapies does, we go to the root cause, we pull it at the root, we upload the learnings, and then all of this unravels and it all heals at the same time. Because really the learnings were always the same in every incident that happens. So we go through a specific order. We do anger first, then sadness, fear, hurt, shame, rage, and then guilt. And we do it in a specific order. And then from there, depending on what the learnings are, we usually get like a pattern of what this person's core limiting beliefs are. And they're usually one of 4: unlovable, unworthy, not good enough, or powerless, or a combination, or sometimes all 4. And we release those as limiting beliefs, limiting decisions. That is the most amount of change that we have noticed in our trainings that people have. And a lot of the feedback is that it's quieter up here. It's not this like constant battle with yourself. And it's just like there's a sense of peace and calm because now your unconscious mind is not constantly being like, well, hey, deal with this and I'm not good enough or I'm not worthy or, I don't feel powerful. This is all in our unconscious mind. So it almost slows it down. So now consciously you're just more at peace
And all of these are done
in one session
without talking
without talking about the traumatic event.
about the traumatic event.
All we
That's
talk about is the
interesting.
learnings. What did you need to learn? And again, there's a process that we take people through because unfortunately, a lot of us, and I was one of them, we're not very in tune with our unconscious mind, right? We're just so in our conscious every day that we kind of forget what the programs are running, right? I'll give you an example. When you wake up in the morning, you just do your morning routine. You brush your teeth, you go to the bathroom, you do your hair. You don't even consciously think about it, right? You're unconsciously doing it, just like your car, right? You can literally be driving your car and thinking about something or talking or listening to a podcast, and you all of a sudden you pull into your garage. You're like, I don't even remember driving here. It's just unconscious. That's the program that's running your life. So that is what people don't realize, that they're so unaware or unconscious of what they're doing that these programs are running. So we first need to build rapport with the conscious and the unconscious. So people can have that awareness of how am I running my life? What am I doing? Like, what are my normal thought processes? So the first step that we teach people is, first of all, pay attention. Where in your life do you have pain? Is it emotional pain, physical pain, financial pain? Because without actually paying attention to the pain is there to be like, get your attention. Unfortunately, a lot of us wait till it's too late, or it's not too late. It's just, it's gotten really loud, right? The pain's gotten really loud. And then we have the awareness piece. Once we have the awareness piece, now we have the ability to make a choice to do something to shift it.
So, for people who are watching this, how do they know? Because a lot of people are like, I'm good. I don't need this. How do they know if this is something for them or if this is something that would help them to go from where they are to somewhere that they're going to be very quiet and free in their mind?
Yeah, great question. So everybody's got trauma, right? And I know they talk about big T trauma. And in my personal opinion, I think trauma is trauma. Whether it was like sexual abuse trauma or whether it was, your parent yelled at you and you felt like you were not good enough, it's still trauma. However it shows up in someone's life is still traumatic for them. So I think everybody can benefit from it. The problem is that if we are so, again, unconscious that we just think our life is good, or deep down there's something inside of you that's like, I'm not happy. Kind of where I was at when I was, checked all the boxes. I'm like, why do I still feel so unfulfilled? Why do I, still complain a lot about things when I, on paper, have everything checked off? So it's just a matter of being honest with yourself. And to be honest, we don't work with everybody because unless you want to change, it won't work because your unconscious mind won't cooperate because you won't have the rapport in order for it to speak to you.
Mhm. So you're a strong, independent woman yourself, and you're also doing well financially, and you're successful, and you have changed your life from something probably very different than what you are doing right now. So through all these different careers and challenges, did you have one strategy to keep moving forward, or was that a different event of changing mindset to get to the next step?
Now the answer is different than what it used to be because see, I was always a go-getter. However, I realized like I became a police officer because I felt powerless growing up. So unconsciously, I wanted power, right? Unconsciously, I felt that I needed to fight for justice because I felt like I was, had no justice in my life. So what I used to do before was a lot of the things to fulfill those needs that I didn't have met, right? Because those were those limiting beliefs that were, telling me I'm not good enough, I'm not powerful, I'm not worthy, right? Because I grew up with two brothers. And in our culture, unfortunately, and this is changing now, and I don't blame my parents. They did the best they could with the resources they have, right? And I'm first generation born Canadian, so I get where they were at. However, it wasn't really good for me, right? Because I was told I couldn't do stuff because I was a girl. And so imagine, as a little girl growing up that I felt like I wasn't good enough because I was a female. So unconsciously, I didn't want to be a girl. Deep down, I was like, it sucks to be a girl because the boys can go out and do everything, but I can't. So a lot of the things that I was doing was to prove my worth to the outside world. Oh, you told me I couldn't do that because I'm a boy? Well, watch me. Right? I rode motorcycles, I snowboarded, like I became a cop. I did all the boy stuff, right? Because I wanted to prove that I was strong enough. However, that was the wrong reason I was doing it. Now I understand that I do things to fulfill my needs, not to prove to other people. So if I could give anybody any advice, is understand why you do things. Really deep down, why are you doing it? Are you doing it to fulfill your own needs or to fulfill what society has told you to do, what your family has told you to do, or what school or, whatever it is, media, right? We always want the nice car. We want this because society says, oh, you're successful when you drive a nice car or you have this amount of money in your bank account. Is that what you want? Does that fulfill you, or is that because your family said you should do this? You know what I mean?
Family or environment, whatever
Exactly.
that environment is.
Exactly. Yeah.
So I would think families all around the world could have different culture, and someone next door could be very similar to someone in another country with the strict rules and a mindset that is very old or is not working with the life that we're living now. So what would you say to a 18 years old, um, I guess, male or female, that is living in an environment, um, family or friends or neighborhood, that nobody believes this person can make it, um, and this person doesn't have a lot of options or mentor or someone to look up to?
Hmm.
What would you say to them?
That's a big question. And I know a little bit about your story, so I know where that's coming from. We teach something called values levels. And what values levels means is something that's important to you, your level of consciousness, your level of awareness, and your way of thinking. Now, if your environment, if say you want to be an entrepreneur, if your environment does not promote entrepreneurship, it will be very difficult for you to succeed because the environment affects you, right? And if thinking about sacred geometry, you know about the seed of life. You know
Yes.
that saying, "Show me the 5 people you hang out with, and I'll tell you
Yes.
who you are." That's
Yeah.
where that comes from. So your seed, you are the 6th ring in that those 6 rings. If everybody around you is just, we call it value level 4, like just get a job, do the thing, sacrifice now for future. In order for you to progress to value level 5, which is entrepreneurship, it will be very difficult for you to do that. Now, for example, I made the difficult decision to leave my family in order for me to heal.
Changing your
I
environment.
had to. Luckily, I mean, I had the resources to do that, right? As an 18-year-old, yeah, it's a lot more difficult because I go back to my 18-year-old self. I was not happy in my family. However, I felt very powerless. I didn't have any money, right? Because I relied on my family. And so it was very difficult for me to progress that way. So what I would say to my older self, or my younger self, pardon me, is if you want it bad enough, trust your unconscious mind, trust the universe has something for you. And sometimes you just have to take a blind faith. And I was just living in fear back then. And so if I could look back in my life now, every step I took that I was scared of led me to exactly where I meant to go. Because nothing was like clear that, okay, this is the path I'm going to go, right? Even my job, I decided to take a leave and I'm like, I don't know what I'm going to do because I'm a single mom. I don't get financial help. I have to take care of my children. I have a mortgage. I have to pay my bills. What am I going to do? Right? Except that's why people get stuck in their jobs because it's the golden handcuffs, right? I've got a pension. I've got, a paycheck every 2 weeks. I got the benefits. However, I had to take that step in order for the next door to open. So if you want to do things when something happens, that's a conditional commitment, and that's not the way the universe works. The universe will provide you what you need as long as you commit fully. That no matter what, I'm going to make this decision, I'm going to make it work. Because then you're going to take the action steps, right? That's the other piece of it, is that you have to focus on what you want, not focus on what you don't want, right? And you got to take the action steps. Because a lot of people are, manifestations, this whole thing, like, I'm going to just sit here and meditate and manifest what I want. And then they sit on the couch and watch Netflix. I'm like, well, what are you doing to get that to happen? Are you going and getting educated? Are you going and taking some courses? Are you going and learning about yourself? Are you going and do the healing work? Right? Making sure that you are going inwards and doing your own, basically shadow work is what that's what the word is out there, is that what is blocking you? Because that's all it is, right? That's what I tell people, like when they ask me what I do, I'm like, I just help you get out of your own way. Because here I was thinking it was because I was East Indian, because I was born in this family, it was because I'm a girl, it was because all these things was blocking me from being successful. It had nothing to do with that. It was my own limiting beliefs that stopped me. And now, as soon as I got rid of that, I started this work only 2 years ago. As soon as I got rid of that, I was finally successful in business. I
So,
took 3 businesses to 6 figures in the first year,
Mhm.
because I no longer had this program running that I'm not good enough, that I'm not powerful, that I'm not smart enough, or that I'm not supposed to be independent because I'm a female. None of that was playing anymore. So I kept going and taking the action step, and the universe kept bringing me the resources that I needed to go into the next level.
did you feel free about the mindset change that you had 2 years ago? Did you feel so free after that to do whatever you're capable of doing, anything you want to do, um, rather than the previous you?
It was a progression, and it's like layers, right? You take this first layer off, because imagine we're born in these beautiful little essence of, magnificence is what we call it. And then something happens and this limiting belief comes on, and this, negative emotion comes on, and it's all these layers and layers. And then, like I'm turning 50 this year. I got a lot of crap that I had to layer. So as I started unlayering it, the more I started becoming confident in who I am and knowing who I am, knowing my abilities, knowing my capabilities, knowing my intelligence, and trusting the universe that it has my back. That's when I was like, can I swear a little bit?
Of course, yeah.
I use I don't know.
Go ahead.
I use the term unfuckable with, right?
Mhm.
Like, I'm here.
Mhm.
Sure, life's going to happen. Nothing's going to knock me over. So nothing scares me anymore, if that makes any sense.
Yeah.
Right? Like,
There's no
sure, things will
limits.
happen.
But when was that moment that happened?
It was a progression. I just got stronger and
Progression.
stronger and stronger. Right? So every
Working
step I
with
took,
someone or within yourself?
well, as
Develop.
I was training in these modalities, we are training programs. You go through your own breakthroughs, right? Because you have to deal with self before you can work with other people. So through the program, our shit comes up, and then we can heal it, right? We release it. And at every time I did a course and I up leveled my skills, I got deeper and deeper into who I was. And that's when I got more and more confident in I got this. I got this thing called life, right?
Yeah. So you talked a lot about trauma being built up layers after layers. When a child is born, years after years after years, there are all of these limitations that are put place in a little child. And when they're at 18, they're probably full of traumas or limitations. For parents, what would you suggest if someone has two kids and wanted to make sure that they're not doing
Yeah.
those limitations, or what will cause a kid to feel traumatized when they grow up? What would you suggest to those parents?
What a beautiful question. I know for a fact doing this work has made me such a better parent. And I have two young kids. I have a son and a daughter. They're 8 and 10. And it's allowed me to understand that they have their own life and their own journey. And my stuff is my stuff, and they don't deserve to take my stuff. I brought them into this world. It's my responsibility to deal with my own crap so I don't put it on them. And that's what I mean about generational trauma, right? And I know, like, I had some intense childhood trauma that I finally started speaking about. And when I finally told my parents, and my mom's like, oh, the same thing happened to me. And I was like, I had no idea, except she didn't have the resources to deal with it. Right now, I have some resources to deal with it. So when I heal it, not am I healing it that way generationally, I'm healing it for the generations forward. So now I can have conversations with my kids, with my daughter about this stuff and say, like, have these conversations that are sometimes uncomfortable, knowing that I can empower them and they can understand that they're in control of their life, that I don't own them. Right. I mean, my job is to keep them safe and raise them for kind, compassionate human beings. However, once they're adults, they don't owe me anything, right? They are in their journey, especially as a single mom. I had some, it was a process of letting go that I don't have control over how their father fathers them. That's their business, right? And I've never talked badly about them to them because I said, my opinion of him is my opinion. I don't want them to have a negative opinion of me because those are my own issues, right? Because my opinion of him as a husband should not affect them as their opinion of him as a father. And I want them to have a good relationship with their father. I have seen through my policing career how parents pit their kids against each other, and it's just harming the children. So just understanding that we're all here on our own journey, and what your journey is your journey, and I have no business affecting your journey. I can't change you. You have your own journey. And it's almost like kind of like, oh, okay, I don't have to like worry too much about them, right? Because they need to learn their own lessons because that's part of their evolution of their soul.
Hmm.
So yeah.
Do you work with mental health therapy, or if someone is going through mental health issue in all forms? Like, do you deal with that too? Is that part of your coaching?
Yes,
Yeah.
yes. The answer is yes. And we deal with all kinds of health. And there's another big topic that we teach is that, mental health is just one of it. We have emotional health, we have physical health, and we have spiritual health because there's actually 4 bodies. And what people don't realize is that when things start showing up in their physical body, it's because it's come through those other bodies, the spiritual, the mental, and emotional. And the top 3 are actually connected to our minds. So our conscious mind is our mental body, right? That's our thinking mind. So sometimes when we think too much, we can think ourselves into depression. We can think ourselves into anything, right? If you just keep thinking about depressive thoughts, you're going to get depressed. If you keep thinking about anxious thoughts, guess what? You're going to have anxiety. The key is it's just your thought. And one of our mentors, Sydney Banks, he talks about the 3 principles of life, which is mind, consciousness, and thought. And he said everybody is one thought away from perfect mental health. And he started working with psychologists saying that if you just stop talking about the depressive thing and maybe start talking about something happy, guess what? You'll be happy in that moment because it's a mind-body connection.
Mhm.
Right. And when you think about, I think of it like, the crappy thoughts, you're going to get crappy neurotransmitters, those chemicals, like the adrenaline, the cortisol. If you shift it to a happy thought, that's when you'll get the serotonin and the oxytocin and, the happy chemicals. It literally is a mind body
Yeah,
connection.
the power of positive mindset.
Yeah.
How
It
would
goes
someone,
beyond positive though, because you can think positive. However, if deep down your unconscious mind is like, no, I don't believe you.
You have to believe
Exactly.
what you're saying. But what is it true that they're saying if every day you wake up and you're grateful for something,
Mhm.
after a few times you repeat yourself, does it become part of your beliefs?
Absolutely, because you are constantly thinking, you're firing those neural pathways of gratitude.
Right.
So, as you start firing all these neural pathways together, they work together. And now that just becomes the way that you do it. It's a habit then, right? Our unconscious mind works with habits.
Right.
And so, yeah, if you can repeat it, it's just the thing is that a lot of people want to do this consciously and they need willpower for that. And unfortunately, willpower runs out because our conscious mind is only 10% of our mind, where our unconscious mind is 90%. So that's why we always promote, like, how about you get in touch with your unconscious mind, figure out where the programming is, where the strategies are that aren't running, and change them there because it's way easier and it's way faster.
So if someone wanted to, let's say, start this process, you mentioned you can help people to do this in one session. So is that like in an instant one session they can just turn their life, or is that like a few sessions they have to go through to achieve what they wanted to achieve or what they have been traumatized for many, many years?
Great question. So the timeline therapy session, those 7 negative emotions and your limiting beliefs, that's actually just like an hour, hour and a half, 2 hours. We give a lot of work ahead of time because, again, we need you to build a rapport. So it's almost like going to the gym. I want you to warm up before I'm going to get you to start lifting the heavy weights, right? And so we have, like, free webinars that we do every month. We have a 1-day course called Clear the Screen that, again, teaches you how to do the anxiety clearing exercise. Because, again, we got to put the fire out before we can go in and assess the damage in the house, right? So anxiety, if you have constant anxiety, learn the anxiety clearing technique, which is also a timeline therapy technique. Then we have a 2-day workshop called Amplify Your Mind, which takes people through this journey and shares with them how their mind works, why it's important to have connection with your unconscious mind. So it's a lot of education first. And as they're educating, and we give them lots of tools and techniques and strategies to start this process. And the gratitude journal is actually one of the tasks that we give people. Like every night, start thinking about the 5 things that you were grateful for this day. And little things, right? Like, I got a parking spot when I came here, or my kid and just gave me a hug out of nowhere. Like just little things, right? I saw a hummingbird or something like that. Because what you're doing is training your mind to look for the positive. There's something called the reticular activation system, which is you're training your mind to really focus on certain things. Have you ever put like a deposit on a car and all of
Yeah.
a sudden you see that car everywhere,
Yeah.
right? You just put it in your reticular activation system to focus on that. Right. Or like when I was pregnant, all of a sudden I started seeing pregnant women everywhere. It wasn't more pregnant women. It's just, I started noticing strollers and things like that because now that's what I was focusing on. So if you can train your RAS, that's what it's called, to focus on gratitude, guess what? You're going to look for more things to be grateful for, and the universe is going to send you more things to be grateful for.
Yeah, absolutely.
I think that reflects to what I tell everybody that, kids sometimes don't know what they're gonna do in 5 years, 10 years. They don't know who they are. They're
Yeah.
trying to find what they like. And I sometimes say, just pick who you want to be and go around and say, like, I'm a doctor, I'm an engineer. Just go around like I own this business, or this is what I do, or this is who I am. And you start seeing a lot of people coming to you for that. And you start seeing a lot of people that are already doing that. And you just get to that point that you want to get into,
Yep.
right? So I think that also applies to that. So now for any entrepreneur that is part of our audiences are young entrepreneurs, um, when they're struggling to believe that they can do certain things, and either they've been told they can do it, or they just doubt themselves of the capability that they have, what would you say to them?
I would say get in touch with your unconscious mind and figure out where that program is running and what that limiting belief is. Because you see, we don't give ourselves limiting beliefs, it's always given to us. And so we have to figure out what is that voice that you're hearing and how do we shift it. And we have lots of tools and techniques to help, shift, right? Like timeline therapy is that's the one session that makes the most amount of change for people, right? Like we run people's values, we run their strategies, we do it before we do the timeline therapy session. And then it's amazing that when we run it again afterwards, how much the unconscious mind readjusts everything. So what was important in your values before all of a sudden is not. This negative strategy that used to run all of a sudden doesn't run anymore because now the unconscious mind doesn't need that strategy. It's literally like an upgrade. We upgrade our phones or like the updating software. That's exactly what you're doing. We don't realize that our inner 5-year-old is running our adult life. And we're like, I don't know why I can't get ahead. And it's because that little 5-year-old that thinks they're not good enough is unconsciously sabotaging you. So my best advice is do the inner work. Learn how your mind works. Learn what your unconscious programs are. And the only way to do that is to get in touch with that at the unconscious level.
Um, for someone who's just fresh from school or just starting their career, um, not knowing what they want to do, they don't probably want to spend 20 years in a steady career path and then realize or then start changing their mindset. What would you recommend? What do they need to do now in order to make sure that they're actually making a decision early on and they have a happy life for 20 years as opposed to kind of changing their mindset? Do that early, kind of prevent meeting others' expectations, meeting society's expectation, go work for this great company. What would you suggest they do at 18 or they do right after school? Because some kids fresh from high school, they actually go and take engineering program just to satisfy their parents. And I know actually a guy who has a PhD and he's a comedian just because he's gone through all that learning process, university, masters and PhD just to satisfy their parents.
I think the best advice is to pay attention. Pay attention to why are you doing what you're doing? Are you doing it because someone told you to do it, or are you doing it because you want to do it? Now, that being said, everything happens as it's meant to be, right? I mean, I could look back and say, oh, I wasted 20 years being a cop. Absolutely not. It helped me build my confidence. It helped me build my independence. It helped me learn a lot. It helped me, you know, deal with people's trauma that now when I help people, nothing kind of phases me because I've seen it all, right? So it's given me a different outlook on life, and it's given me skills. Now, that's not to say that maybe 10 years ago, you know, I could have quit then and maybe had a different life, but I don't look at it that way because I know that everything happens in divine timing. So as long as you're paying attention to, am I doing this because I'm happy, or am I doing this because I'm making someone else happy? Now, that being said, you can still do things to make your family happy, right? And your family sometimes, you know, when we're teenagers, we can be a little rebellious, right? We may not know what's best for us. So I think going to university is still a good idea because what are they learning? They're learning responsibility, right? They're learning time management. They're learning how to study. Those are still good skills that you're going to use throughout your life. Because at 18, if I was going to start running a multi-million-dollar business, I would have no idea what to do. Right? Even like policing, when you know you start policing at 21 years old and you have to go and deal with a domestic violence and you've never had a relationship, how do you deal with that? So you want the life experience because that's part of the process. You want to go through things and learn, like, what am I supposed to learn here? The key is, and this is what big thing that we teach, NLP terminology is cause and effect. We call it victim island and solution city. When you are at the effect of life, life is happening to you, right? You don't have power here. When you're at the effect, or what we call solution city, this is where life is happening for you. So if you always keep the mindset that anything that is happening in my life, good, bad, is always here to teach me something, and that if it's not comfortable, to celebrate it because that means you're growing, that's a different mindset because then we don't get stuck. Right? A lot of people get stuck. I was here. I joke. I used to say, like, I had so much property that I owned on Victim Island, and I used to invite the girlfriends over for margaritas and be like, "Come and listen to my sob story." Right? Like, why did this happen to me? And then finally, I was like, no, I literally sold all my property. I sometimes go back for a visit because life happens. However, now I have the tools that we use this analogy that the first time, like, if you're really stuck there, the first time you're going to get to victim or solution city, like through the programming that we teach, it's going to be like a rowboat, right? You're going to have to put some effort in because, like, you've been here for some time. Then the next time you go there, you might have a little sea-doo, right? It'll be quicker because you have some tools that you can help you get there. And then eventually you have the shiny red speedboat with your, that's docked at your beachfront property that you go over to Victim Island. You realize, hey, this is not helping me. This is not, like for real estate, for example, how many things go wrong? Right?
Yeah,
How many things go wrong?
everything.
My property in Mexico right now, there's so many things going wrong. And I could be stuck in the, why is this happening? Like, oh, da, 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 da. And I still, for a moment, I'll get there. And then I realize that's not helping the situation. Now, let me get back over here. What can I do about it? What is this teaching me? It's teaching me some patience, for sure. It's teaching me this. It's teaching me that. It's teaching me to do extra due diligence, all this kind of stuff. And now what action steps can I take to to keep moving forward as opposed to getting stuck here.
I have a question for you, actually. This is really interesting because we talked about all of these trauma and how to remove all of those layers. The one thing that I want to know is someone who wants to have control. And I know you probably know a lot of people get um, through trauma, they go through a lot of trauma because they don't have control on something. What would you recommend to those people who like to take control and they feel powerless and they lose their motivation, which will eventually affect them in anything in their life, whether it's a career, whether it's a job or a relationship?
So the only thing you have control over is your reaction and your thoughts. So if something's not going well, it's either the universe has something different for you, right? Because the universe will put obstacles in our way because it's telling you, hey, this is not the path for you. We want you to move this way. It's when people go up against the obstacles and the boulders and they're just like, I'm being stubborn. I want to make this happen. They're not paying attention, right? It goes back to paying attention. Why do I keep wanting to go this way? Is it my ego that's saying that I have to succeed in this? Or am I listening to, we say, we have a saying that there's no failure. It's all feedback. So if you're failing at something, we don't say it as, oh, I'm a failure. It's no, it's what feedback can I get from it? And now what can I do with that? And so we can control situations. Like, for example, in Mexico, I have no control, especially being up here. I have no control what's happening down there. What I'm going to do, I'm going to fly down next week and I'm going to go take control of what I can take control of instead of me yelling at people that I have no control over, right? It's just a matter of understanding what can I do to fix the situation as opposed to like hanging on for dear life. Like, no, I want it to go this way.
Changing
Mhm.
mindset, basically.
It's
How you
knowing that
look
you
at
only have it's only you have your own control. I can't control you. I can't control you. I can't control what anybody does. I can't control the universe.
Yeah.
I can only control how I react. Are you not saying like life is, 10% what happens to you, 90% of how you react to it? It's such
exactly.
a true thing, right? We get stuck on, again, victim island. Why is this happening to me? When really it's happening because the universe is telling you something. You're just not paying attention to what it's wanting to tell you.
Right.
What I find interesting is your life experience and your skills and education, work experience. It's mixed with spiritual understanding and your belief, and your perspective and point of view is based on that, which is a very strong perspective in terms of being able to look at it in a positive way. I would think some people would have challenge with limited experience, or if they're not spiritually strong or have any belief. Um, when people come to change their mindset or come to you for help, would you touching their subconscious mind, and what would you use spiritual, emotional skills? Like what do you put together as a package to help them out?
So, meaning, do I talk about spirituality with them?
Yeah, like to change their mindset in that regards as well.
Again, I don't change anything.
Mhm.
We always call ourselves the tour guide and that your unconscious mind is the coach. And I mean, we've done very in-depth training of, values levels. So we have to meet people where they're at. So if someone is still very much value level 3, where, it's just about me and I just got to get ahead, you know, or they're in value level 4, which is all about, it's right or wrong, I can only speak to them at the level of consciousness that they can hear me. Right? It's like about frequency. It's like if I turn the channel and it's like a static, like they can't hear. So I have to, this is part of the training that we're in, is understanding where people are at. So if someone came to me, and someone did come to me when I was first going through all my stuff before I learned any of this work, and she said, just stop thinking about it. And I literally was like, what do you mean just stop thinking about it? How do I just stop thinking about it? I literally want to punch her in the throat. I'm like, what do you mean? Like, I couldn't understand it, except now I understand that now my consciousness has expanded that, oh my gosh, it has to do with my thought process. Because I was on victim island. I was the blame game. Oh, it's all this reason, right? I couldn't understand it was my thought of what was happening that was creating that negative emotions in me. And so when people want to keep blaming, it's not going to work. For the spirituality piece, again, when I first started this work, if you would have told me I'm going to be teaching people about the unconscious mind, I would have said you probably should go see a doctor or something. Like, I arrest bad guys for a living. Like, come on, I don't do this woo-woo stuff, right? Yet the more I dive into this, and I've done a very intense spiritual trainings myself now, it's all spiritual. It's all spiritual. We just have to understand how it works. Because, people say, oh, it's woo-woo. Actually, this is the woo-woo. There's lots of work around this. Like, this is an illusion and we create our reality. Like Deepak Chopra is like, they've all done so much research on this, right? Joe Dispenza talks about, we create our reality by our thought process. However, we can recreate it moment by moment by our thought process. So if people don't at least believe in a higher power, I used to call myself spiritual. I didn't believe there was I didn't know what my higher self was, which is your highest expression of yourself in this lifetime, right? Everything that you need is there, your perfect blueprint for health, except the access door is through the unconscious. That's where your intuition comes. Sometimes you just get that feeling. That's your higher self talking to you saying, yes, this is a good direction, or no, this is not a good direction. So if we learn, again, it comes back to getting to know who you are, getting a rapport with your unconscious mind so that you have access to the higher self. That's where the wisdom is, right? And a lot of these people that are having these awakenings, that it's getting louder. They're starting to be able to hear, that little voice that's like, oh, Billy, you're made for more. You're made for more than this. There's more to life than this. And that's that little voice that started getting louder and louder that guided me to literally where I am now.
What do you think about meditation? Is that part of your program? Is that part of what you would suggest people or help them to get into?
So I have a love-hate relationship with meditation because I have a very active mind, right? My
Yes.
mental body is very active.
Yeah.
And when I've done transcendental meditation, I've done, I've done Vipassana, where you go for 10 days and you can't make eye contact and talk to people and you're meditating 14 hours a day. I was not happy, right? Because I'm just sitting oh, my leg hurts and oh, my back's hurting and, all this stuff. And really the whole point of meditation is to get quiet. So again, it's another doorway in. However, for someone like me that has a very active mind, it's almost frustrating, right? It's a little frustrating because I have to keep bringing my mind. No, don't go over there. No, come here. No, don't go over there. It keeps going on all these things that I have to I'm going to feed the kids. Oh, I got this meeting and I got to do this and all these things. So as long as you're not using meditation as escapism, whereas I don't want to deal with the world and I'm just going to sit here and just think about something and just zone out, then that's not the right reason for it. If it's to quiet your mind and really get in touch with it so that you can hear those voices, the intuition, then great. What timeline therapy does is these filters that we have, all this information's coming at us, right? Especially with social media, there's so much information. Based on where our filters are, the information that's coming through could lead to what we call a negative internal representation, which is the movie we play in our mind. So if the meditation allows that filter to be more clear, so if you can clear the filters first when you do timeline therapy, then when you're going to meditate, then maybe it won't be constantly, I got to think about this, think about it. So it helps you kind of get and quiet your mind. So it's a good complement together. However, it's all about what are you doing it for, right? What's the purpose of it?
So for someone who doesn't, who has an active mind like yourself,
Yeah.
you would recommend to actually go through timeline therapy and kind of try to achieve what you want to achieve instead of a meditation through timeline therapy. That's what you would
I personally think timeline therapy is the quickest way
recommend.
to get to your next level because it clears so much stuff from the root, right? Again, we're not moving from the outside in. We're literally going to the root cause. Think about I love analogies, as you can tell.
Mm-hmm.
Think of weeds, right? If you cut the weed at the top, it'll be okay for a little bit, but then it'll grow back.
Mm-hmm.
If you cut it at the middle, right? People are oh, I'm stressed out. I'm going to go on vacation. Cool. You're cutting the weed at the middle and maybe you'll be okay for a few weeks, but it'll still grow back. If you pull the whole root out, it can't come back. So that's what timeline therapy does is all these little nigging little thoughts and stuff that you have, it won't be as active anymore. So therefore the meditation will be easier.
I love this because in our industry, construction industry, it's a very tough, stressful environment. And I think timeline therapy would help a lot of people in construction industry because they they don't want to talk about their traumas. There is that ego, there's
Right.
that pride inside. They don't want to talk about their trauma. B, their mind is everywhere. Like you mentioned, an active mind cannot go through meditation to calm themselves down. And I love to hear um, this solution. It's the first time I'm hearing about timeline therapy, and I think this is a great solution for a lot of people in our industry.
Yeah. I mean, timeline therapy is new, right? I mean, it was developed in the 80s by Dr. Tad James. He unfortunately passed away now. His wife, Dr. Adriana James, who now is one of my mentors, and that's who I was in South Africa with, doing a very, very in-depth spiritual training with her. I really believe that it's the new wave of the future. And I think Tad James, I think his purpose was to bring it here. And, now and I've been studying astrology and, planetary alignments, and all the mystics are saying that like 2026, 2027 is the year to finally let go of all those limiting beliefs, heal that generational trauma. There's a new paradigm coming. The old paradigm is falling. That's why there's so much chaos in the world right now, right? It's like the old systems are starting to crumble because people are waking up. People are waking up that maybe, and the pandemic was a beautiful intro into that, right? Like, I don't even like this person. Why am I married to them? Or I don't even like this job. Why am I here? Right? It really allowed the world to kind of pause and take like inventory of like, what's in my life? Why do I have this stuff? Because again, they just got into the programming, the unconscious, right? So I want to also mention something here is that I say that timeline therapy in one session can do massive things. But again, this is a lifestyle, right? So we always recommend do one session timeline therapy a month. So it's an hour, right? So it's like your self-care. We created a membership around it. So it's like a gym membership for your mind. We go to the gym. You can't just go to the gym one time and, do good work. I'm like, okay, good, check, healthy, right? It's a lifestyle. So we want people to keep learning about themselves. Like I've just scratched the surface. I've done a lot of trainings, and the more I do, the more I learn, the more I realize I have no idea. There is so much to our minds. There's so much to the level of power that we have no idea. And it's because it's been trained out of us.
Mm.
Because the system doesn't want us to know that we have power, right? Otherwise, it'll crumble. They want us to stay stuck in the system because that's how the system keeps
Moving,
functioning.
yes, yes. And
Oh,
then I think you're absolutely right, because similar to fitness, or when you want to lose weight, they're saying it takes the same amount of time to lose weight as you basically gain them. And then same thing with your muscles. If you lose your muscles, it's
yep.
going to take the same amount of time. So similar to timeline therapy. And I think someone who has gone through several layers and years of trauma, it's not going to be
Yeah.
all solved in one session. Absolutely, they need to go through several
Yeah.
sessions to.
So I kind of coined myself as a brain trainer, like a personal trainer for your brain, right? I can teach you how to do the exercises, but you're the one who's going to have to go to the gym to do the exercises. And if you go and you just sit there and do nothing, okay, great. You learned how to do some exercises, but you're not applying it. So a lot of our work is about empowering people and tasking them and really teaching them how to make this a lifestyle as opposed to just come for an experience of a course and, we call that shelf development, right? You learn something and then you put it on the shelf, right? It's actually not self-development until you actually put them into action. Because what you're doing is you're learning it, you're experiencing it, and then where it combines, that's where the wisdom is, and that's where those new neural pathways have been created. Now think about it. That first time that neural pathway fired, it's like a little bunny trail. Then the next time I keep firing it, now it'll be into like a sidewalk. And we want to keep firing those neural pathways so it gets to like the 8-lane highway that this is now how I am. I don't have to think about it. I've embodied this work now. Right? I mean, I've only done this 2 years ago, and people are like, how do you talk about this so naturally? I'm like, first of all, it's information that I already knew, right? And that's what I want people to understand, that people can't teach you anything. All they're teaching you is something that you've already known, and we're just reminding you of it. And once you actually apply it, it just becomes who you are. You don't have to think about it anymore because now my unconscious mind just does it naturally.
How would people find you?
I'm all over Instagram. Our academy is Amplify Impact Academy. My personal coaching company is Go Mindspire. We're on Facebook. We're on LinkedIn. We launched our academy last year. So my business partner and I, Melissa, she had her training company, I had mine, and we met in our trainers training. And we believe in collaboration. There's no competition in the world. And I was like, she lives up in Whistler, and I was like, do you want to just train together? It'd be so much more fun and maybe easier because,
Mm.
we don't have to do everything ourselves. And we instantly hit it off. And last year we hired a mentor because we truly believe everybody should have a mentor and a coach. We practice what we preach. And we came back from a mentorship out in the UK, and I just said, this word amplify kept coming in. And then I remember so clearly, I was taking my dog for a walk and the word impact came in.
Mhm.
I was like, amplify impact. That's what our academy is going to be called. Because until we can amplify ourselves and really get to know who we are, then can we impact everybody else in the world around us. And really, talking spirituality, the whole concept of we are one and we're all in this together. And we're only strong as our weakest link, and everybody's doing the best they can with the resources they have. It's just, unfortunately, there's a lot of people out there that aren't very well resourced, and it's because they're living in fear, they're living in anxiety, and we just want them to know that there's a way out. There is a way out, and it doesn't have to be this way.
Yeah. So talking about impact, so we want to try to have a little impact out there in our community. So thank you so much for sharing.